Welcome to the 27th episode of Speaking of Poetry. I am Rennie McQuilkin, publisher of Antrim House Books, whose authors are featured in this series. Today I am delighted to be joined by Joan Seliger Sidney. Joan's recent book, Bereft and Blessed, is based in part on the horrors of the Holocaust, during which time Joan's grandparents and other relatives lost their lives. It is also based on her multiple sclerosis, which she has lived with since her mid-20s, prevailing over it with great courage and resilience, finding many blessings in a life that has strengthened and enlivened her in ways most of us can barely imagine. Joan is the author of 2 other books, and her poems have appeared in many journals, including the Louisville Review, the Massachusetts Review, Michigan Quarterly Review, Jewish Currents, and elsewhere. They have also been widely anthologized and have led to the many grants and fellowships she has received to support her writing. Joan has lived and taught near Grenoble, France, and has also taught at the University of Connecticut and Eastern Connecticut State University. She is currently writer-in-residence at the University of Connecticut's Center for Judaic Studies and Contemporary Jewish Life. In addition, Joan facilitates Writing for Your Life, an adult workshop. She lives with her husband of 48 years in Storrs, Connecticut, and they are the proud parents of 4 children and 5 granddaughters. Welcome to Speaking of Poetry, Joan Seliger Sidney.
Thank you, Rennie, for that very moving introduction. My book is divided into 2 sections. Section 1 is called Inheritance, and it's basically filled with poems devoted to my Holocaust inheritance. And the first poem that I'll read gives you a background about my parents. It's called Inheritance. Żurawna, Poland, where Mom grew up. The coal stove in the kitchen, brick oven big enough for her mama to bake wheat bread, challah, rugelach, to feed her family of 9 all week. The chestnut table, doubling as the goose-down feather bed where Mom and her sister Luba slept. The barn behind the house, the cow her sister Minka milked morning and night, the eggs Mom picked up from the 16 hens she gave grain, named and refused to eat, not even in Shabbos soup. The outhouse in the woods she wouldn't use on icy days and nights. Her brother Ulick's hickory skis she borrowed, ropes threaded through holes and tied to her boots. The Carpathian trails she crisscrossed, the cheese and chocolate she stopped to eat. The Ginesta Wisrulik, Ulick's best friend, taught her the European breaststroke, her head high above water, her blue eyes that speared him for life. Their courtship off and on, gymnasium in Lvov for her, law studies in Krakow for him. This pink, heart-shaped diamond engagement ring Dad slipped on Mom's 4th finger at a home today on mine. I write sometimes poems from dreams, and this one is one of those. It's called I Wake with Tears. Sometimes in my dreams, I hear Mom's voice sing the silence of her orchard, row after row of branches broken, her house a ghost lost between wars, her parents a photo snapped by a soldier. Sometimes in the orchard of memory, wild horses raced past Mom's house, stolen by her Ukrainian neighbors after a stranger led her through a forest of blue spruce. No road but pine needles for bed, no fire but dreams to sing. Sometimes, in the snow of sleep, I hear Mom's voice break through like a lost friend on a ghost road going somewhere I can't remember. The river of her words, the moon of her history, her grief. The next poem, my friend Nechama Tech wrote a book called Defiance, which became a movie. And this poem tells her story. It's called A Bielski Partisan Speaks. Victory means each day we stay human, steal only to eat, take from farms rich in potatoes and turnips, not from farmers starving like us, fields stripped, barns burned, cows, pigs, chickens slaughtered by Germans. Deep in the forest, in darkness we cook our soup. The black pot hangs from a branch. Fire blazes below. Safe for a few hours, no Germans brave enough to enter the night forest. Still, we sleep dressed, ready to flee our temporary tents of tree leaves and limbs. What a strange collection of runaway Jews, our Bielski Otriad. Old people, young men and women, children. To Tuvia Bielski, who leads us on his horse like a meteor, everyone is welcome. Some younger men disagree. Fear for food, want revenge. Feel free to leave, Tuvia tells them. Better to save one Jew than to kill 20 Germans. Not so for Belarusian peasants who catch fleeing ghetto Jews, keep them freezing in storage rooms overnight. Tie them up like sheep and sell them to the police. With their own guns, Tuvia shoots them and their families. On their farm doors in Russian he writes, "Death to Nazi collaborators. Now they know we Jews too can fight. Our Otriad grows to a forest shtetl, our own Jerusalem." July 1944. Our exodus stretches almost 2 kilometers. Scouts on horseback, marching fighters, horse-drawn carts for the sick, a herd of cows, a celebration of survivors. Pantoum for my grandparents. On Yom Kippur, I wrote my first Holocaust poem instead of returning to synagogue to pray. The grandmother I never knew put her hands on my shoulders and told me her story. Instead of returning to synagogue to pray, back to Zhuravna I journeyed with Grandma, hands on my shoulders. She told me her story. Germans so cultured won't hurt us old Jews. Back to Zhuravna I journeyed with Grandma. We watched the road darken with soldiers. Germans so cultured won't hurt us old Jews. From us our Ukrainian neighbors rent. We watched the road darken with soldiers. Grandpa wore his silver cross from World War I. From us our Ukrainian neighbors rent. If only instead of listening I'd whisk them away. Grandpa wore his silver cross from World War I. Grandma braided challah and slid it in the oven. If only instead of listening I'd whisk them away before the betrayal by their Ukrainian neighbors. Grandma braided challah and slid it in the oven. She braised brisket and potatoes. My mouth watered before the betrayal by her Ukrainian neighbors. They beat and bloodied Grandma and Grandpa. She braised brisket and potatoes. My mouth watered. Granddaughter from the future, what could I do? Neighbors beat and bloodied Grandma and Grandpa, threw their still breathing bodies into a pit for Jews. This is another poem from an anecdote Nechama Tech told. It's called Cousin. Jan Rebeck, the tiniest man in his village, opens his attic to a man and his 8-year-old daughter, her mother killed while fleeing camp. He shares his potatoes, ignores the law, death to any Christian and his family that helps a Jew. When Nazi soldiers drag a teenage girl over cobblestones, her legs bloody, her dress shreds, the crowd shrieking, Juda, Juda. Jan Rebeck grabs her hand, hoists her up into his buggy, her eyes wide with disbelief. She's not a Juda, he shouts to his town people. She's my cousin. The next poem is an ekphrastic poem. It's a poem from a photo. Fleeing. God knows where they're going in this photo by Joseph Kudelka. This stream of refugees caught by camera, almost in a pose. Up front, the family dog, white chest and forelegs, regal and high as a Weimaraner, pulls the two-wheeled cart, his withers yoked. The child, awkwardly balanced on a bundle of clothes, struggles to stay seated. Like sticks beating his back, sacks stuffed with pans, pots, potatoes, barley, everything and nothing his parents could fit in this quick exodus, shift and hit. Alongside, his mother in her everyday dress and shawl. His father, in his peaked wool cap, stares straight ahead, not daring to blink at the camera, trying not to see black boots, Kalashnikovs, blocking the border. And this is the last poem in section 1. It's called On Approaching 70. Watching the hands of my son kneading challah dough on the maple cutting board in my kitchen, a memory rises of my mother bending over our kitchen table in Flatbush, pressing, stretching, folding flour, water, eggs into a living elastic. Sometimes in my dreams, Mom appears, whispers of her mother in her kitchen in Zhuravna in the pre-dawn dark by the light of the kerosene lamp, pulling and pushing the yeasty challah dough until my son covers it with a clean white cloth and leaves it in the warm electric oven to rise. Section 2 is called Hills and Valleys, and it has poems that carry over the Holocaust theme, but also deal with multiple sclerosis and other chronic illnesses that I've had and some of my friends have had to confront. It's called, the first one is called First MS Attack. I was entering my 24th year when a bolt of lightning struck my knee and sparks flew toe to thigh. 6 weeks married. I had no time for anything but sex and teaching. Still, fears sneaked in through the door that didn't shut, till I gave myself to doctors, believing they knew everything. Or with a snap of fingers, their genie would figure it out. Did you and your husband fight? Asked the hospital physician. This could be newly married hysteria. Freud twisting weeping women's minds around icy bodies. No, I said. From my bed, I watched leaves on the maple tree outside shrivel and flee across the street in between. As perfect patient, I was passed from machine to machine. This poem is in 4 parts. It's called Multiple Sclerosis. 1. We live in bodies clumsy and disobedient. Wake to urine-soaked pajama pants or a warning twinge before bowels unravel. Foul the bed. Wake to waves of chill chattering teeth, fever-firing seizures, hallucinations of the dead dancing in air above our heads. 2. Leg spasms split night, my right toes twist into tortured poses, my hamstrings kicking my legs in time to an ecstatic drummer beating his djembe dizzy. 3. Yesterday at the gym in the locker room, when the stainless steel transfer bar behind the slatted shower bench snapped off the tiled wall, with me, a paraplegic, dangling mid-air between bench and wheelchair. You, my guardian angel, cradled me. 4. It is good to skim even a stiff body through a school of swimmers, catching their kicks, free-floating atoms of energy, back and forth for an hour, forgetting the invisible hand, all night squeezing an ankle, till sleep disappears in tears and screams. It is good to loiter in the locker room, to watch morning parade past in Speedo or skirted suits, a one-breasted woman scratch her sprouting scalp, an anorexic with legs like toothpicks skip the required shower, a senior hunch her way to a bench. It is good to punch the automatic door opener and crunch through late November's wind-blown leaves, to breathe in cold, clear air, a preview of snow, to press one button on a black remote and watch the minivan door slide open, the ramp unfold, to ride up, look forward, lock down. The next poem, the last 3 words are the title of the book. And I met my friend Maggie in 1982 when we both attended the Aspen Writers Conference for 2 weeks and shared a condo. She's been my soulmate ever since. She lives in Colorado. Trails. I've always wanted to tell you, Maggie, how patiently snow sits on the hill outside my window, waiting for thirsty deer to track their path to the tree-lined stream. Do you remember daybreak, our hike on the Mesa Trail, when walking was as easy for me as riding a horse was for you? Silently, a doe and her fawn stepped out of the mist like apparitions. We watched them stare back, afraid one move would shoot them past the aspens. How long before they turned, vanished into the mist, leaving us at once bereft and blessed. Now, it's obvious that that poem was written before our deer infestation. This second poem for Maggie dates back to probably 1983 when I visited her. It's called First Visit to Maggies Ranch. Now, her ranch is about the size of Manhattan Island, maybe a little bigger even. Summer sun bakes sagebrush, rattlesnakes haunt the heat. Fearless, each day you stroll your rolling hills of tumbleweed and dust, your prairie paradise. More miles than Manhattan, you say. You need 20 acres to water one cow. We jeep around your boundaries, checking for cracked fences, unlatched gates. Stop at a windmill, watch water fill a wooden trough. Further along at another edge of your land, a stand of weeping willows where a creek from the South Platte trickles. The perfect place to sit on stumps, chew juicy papaya with dark, dark chocolate. Late afternoon, back at the corral, you whistle for your sleek black horse. Saddle up. Your ranch hand steps out of the stable, lifts me like a child to sit behind you. I look down, wishing the ground were nearer, wishing all those years of watching Bonanza could make me feel at ease. But clippity-clop, as thunder gallops, I squeeze tightly. Relax, you're squeezing my breasts, you say, laughing. Sorry, it's my first time. Your left hand brushes mine. Your right pulls lightly back on the reins to slow the pace. We head into the sunset, singing, Don't Fence Me In. The next poem, Hills and Valleys, is the title of this section. I never wanted to know what it was like to reach for a word. Take knee, for example. My left a favorite for folding to my chest when MS spasms send me reeling and find instead a silent stutter. In the hospital after her stroke, your mother, pointing to her knees, croaked, Cover these hills. 23 years later, your third recurrence, chemo weekly to soothe the pain. Too many hours on the sofa. Today I won't stay long. Before I learned to drive again, instead of my right foot, my left hand pressing the knob for gas and brake, you'd take me to the A&P, unfold, then fold my first wheelchair, pivot me out, then back into your sob. A few times a week we speak, as if we'll be here forever, about New England winters, the snowstorms, shoveling our driveways side by side, and about our sons, their children now old enough for airplane visits alone. Passover seders at my table or yours, 4 times refilling goblets with blackberry wine, brisket, leg of lamb, tzimmus, kugel overflowing our plates, you or I motioning to the open door, urging Elijah to step right in. For better or worse, oh poems, if only you could come with words like a wizard whisking me to a place I've longed to see but never knew existed. At daybreak, if I sit in my pine-paneled study by the window watching sparrows flit branch to branch, could I count on your appearance as I do on my husband, who reaches for my hands to help me out of bed, who dances me from chair to toilet to shower, who slides the towel between each toe to dry, who straightens my shirt, pulls up my pants, puts on my socks and shoes. Oh poems, do I ask too much of you, who have not been at my side for 45 years? Oh husband, do I ask too much of you? This last poem is another dream poem. In my dream, I am standing in a field of just cut hay, the yellow straw smell embracing me like a lost love. Gone are my wheelchair years, gone the rolling walker that came before, gone my bamboo ski poles transformed to canes. If only Mom, whose body last I knew these past 11 years, was resting next to Dad's in the New Jersey cemetery I never visit, convinced as I am their spirits have long since abandoned the dark mahogany coffins Mom insisted on ordering to keep the worms away from their flesh longer than pine boxes. If only she were here to see, after all those years paying for uninsured alternative treatments while wishing this illness would disappear and let me walk again. As if this were not miracle enough, I look up to see Mom come flying down the hill, holding tight to the handles of her great-granddaughter Tolly's jogging stroller, smiling all the while those two take the ride of their lives. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Joan. That was truly a celebration of survivors. That phrase that you used to describe a group of Jewish people who had prevailed over the Germans, momentarily at least, could also be applied to the whole book. Your people prevailed even when they were killed. They prevailed in spirit. You have prevailed over your multiple sclerosis. Maggie has prevailed. Those you described, including yourself, are all not just survivors, but prevailers. They are victorious. So as the granddaughter from the future, you have done both your people a great service, and all of us who have enjoyed being blessed by your book enormously. Thank you. And also thanks to Ken Picard and Karen Handville, who make this program possible. If you would like to learn more about Joan Seliger Sidney's work and read samples from her book, please visit the Antrim House website, antrimhousebooks.com. Goodbye for now until we meet again next month for the 28th installment of Speaking of Poetry.